or wherever sort of you are in the world. Welcome to CADAF Happy Virtual Hour number 11. And today we have with us the founder and managing director of the Next Museum, Merel van Helsdingen. If I pronounce it correctly, Merel.
Almost.
No, do correct me, of course. It's really important. Then Bogomir Doringer, who is the curator and head of education of the Next Museum. And then we will also be joined by two artists, Heleen Blanken and Thijs Biersteker, who will show us some of their work. And then we will open up for sort of Q&A. Merel, I would like to start with you because I am really interested in a little bit about your story, because you have come from the corporate world of sort of marketing. You've done marketing and partnership for tech. So I wonder, how did you get closer to new media art? What sparked your interest in new media art that then eventually brought you to found the Next Museum?
Yeah, thanks. I actually get that question a lot because, especially from the museum world, it's who is Merel van Helsdingen and why have we not heard about you? And actually, I actually studied new media and film back in the day in Amsterdam, and then went on to study marketing and work for tech companies in London. But actually, London has such a huge, big, culture-rich city. With really kind of what really inspired me is, for example, the Tate or the Serpentine Gallery, where they really create large-scale installation pieces, often using technology, which was always inspiring and always kind of stayed with me. And at one of my first jobs at Apple, I actually helped work on the first David Hockney installation in the Royal Academy, where he actually presented his work on iPads in one of the spaces. So that has then traveled the world since, and I think this was in 2011, which was the first one. But I remember very well, that was my first encounter where actually technology was merging with art and with painting, and it was exposed in such an interesting way that you could also see the technology and the effects it has on the arts. And I think from there I've gone on to work always at tech companies actually, and really on in the music industry. So there was always the alignment with tech and creativity, and actually going to music festivals really kind of showed me this upcoming trends that more and more young artists working with new media took the stage at big festivals like MUTEC and Sonar Plus D and Today's Art, because that was actually a platform where they had the infrastructure and the space to show this kind of art. And it's actually really hard to show this kind of art in some of the more traditional art spaces, which is also something that I found. So kind of, later in life, I kind of started connecting all the dots that actually it's been like a thread throughout my whole career. And when I saw that there were permanent spaces popping up in the world where they actually started housing new media art, I thought, I went back to Amsterdam and I really missed this actually here. So I wrote a business plan and started actually planning and talking to artists, talking to people from the art world, but also people from the event world, from the TV industry, to really build the plan on how to create one dedicated space for, in my mind, the most inspiring form of art there is at the moment.
And what would you say are sort of the main challenges to build a digital art museum, or, solely dedicated to digital art? I don't know if you already face some challenges, or you envisage some of the challenges sort of in the future. But I think that it would be interesting to talk a little bit about what are the differences also between a traditional art museum and a new media art museum.
Yeah, I think it's such a good question. And this is also something I found out and I learned along the way. I know very well that one of my first conversations with Thijs Biersteker, who is joining this call, was actually about what is the infrastructure I'm going to need. And he really told me from day one, like, Merel, if you want to do this, you need a lot of electricity, you need dark spaces, you need height, you need a lot of height, and a lot of traditional museum spaces are based in, especially in the Netherlands, in these beautiful traditional buildings. But often if you're on the canals, you don't have the extra high power sources. You have like tiny staircases. And so to find a space in Amsterdam where you have height, where you have electricity, where you have an acoustically kind of finished environment so you don't disturb the neighbors, is a real challenge. And I've had to visit, I think, about 36 locations in Amsterdam, from an old police station to warehouses. And eventually, when I was almost ready to go to Rotterdam, because it was really hard to find, I met someone who had a TV studio, which he wanted to rent for a longer period of time. And he really loved the concept. So basically what we did is we transformed an old TV studio with 9-meter high ceilings, 2,000 square meter, basically big black box with all the electricity you need. We found it, and this is the space we then transformed. So from my point of view, that is one of the biggest challenges. And that's also a big challenge I hear from artists that are creating this amazing work. It's often a challenge, how and where are you able to show it? And we have the space to house really large-scale immersive installations. So apart from COVID, that was the biggest challenge.
Yeah, yes. I wanted to actually now ask, maybe going to Bogomir, because I know that you also have, you're opening a show soon on the sort of the 29th of August. And Bogomir, you are the curator of the show. And you have another ongoing project that is called I Dance Alone. And with that project, reflect on social and political sort of change through the activity of clubbing, a little bit more, I've called it in my notes sort of mundane activity of clubbing in a way. But I was wondering what was your inspiration behind the opening show, which is called Shifting Proximities? Also,
hello everyone. So I guess I'm now for the first time in the frame. So I'm exactly calling you from that black box that Merel was describing. It used to be a film studio. So what's maybe interesting to mention about my past is that I'm actually educated as an artist who started curating out of necessity, because I had a feeling that curators did not really fulfill expectations that I had as an artist, first of all. So my practice really revolves around looking into crowds and dynamics and kind of trying to understand what people express consciously or unconsciously through bodies. So the research that you mentioned that looks into the dance floor, it's an interesting situation. It's an activity that happens after we start performing what normally we perform during the day, which is going to jobs, being representative, well-behaved human. And when it comes to the nightlife, it's a ritual where we can sort of transform and communicate non-verbally. But my main interest was, as somebody who grew up in Yugoslavia during the war, was really into the dance as a sign of a social political restlessness, but also dance as a sign of uniting and creating a new movement and strategy how to change things. So a ritual of dancing as a way of surviving in a way. So when it comes to shifting proximities, my work was always about urgency, and we are actually opening next in time of urgency, in time of coronavirus. And not just that, we are opening it in time where the public space is being reshaped. We are asked to move 1.5 meters from each other. We're not allowed to dance. We're not allowed to celebrate. We're not allowed to be with each other in the same way. And that proximity, exactly, that distance between the bodies, is something that is at the moment implemented through the corona, but also by government. And I think finally also my interest was always in this sort of way how the body adjusts itself to new regulations and how it adjusts itself to new conditions. So shifting proximities is exactly, it's not exactly about the dancing, but it's about how we together move in this new situation, how we move, how can technology help us in that, how maybe we move with the new knowledge, with new ideas, but also how technology restricts our movements. So some of the works will be quite liberating, and some works will be quite confronting, that are more looking into face detection, surveillance, and actually technology as a way of controlling us. So that's the shortest that I could connect those two dots, which was the I Dance Alone project and shifting proximities. Yeah.
I mean, you partly answer sort of one of the questions that I also wanted to ask you next, because we have Thijs and Heleen who are part of the show and will show us, you know, some of their work afterwards. But I was wondering if you could tell us or give us a little bit of a preview about the other works and how they connect together. So what should we expect if we came to the exhibition?
I will share a little bit screen with you because I think visuals are always, especially when we talk about new media art, I think things can be quite abstract. And so, I mean, the Heleen's work and Thijs' work are definitely connected, because basically what Heleen is doing with her work called Habitat. I'm not sure, are you able to see the presentation? Yeah. Yeah, should be. So what you see on the top image in the right corner is basically a large-scale projection, 16 by 9, and a water pool on the ground, which sort of distorts the image. And what you see below, these sort of free objects, free world, free digital environments, are 3D scans of artifacts from the Nature History Museum that Heleen scanned and then used further with the software that was developed in Netherlands to sort of create this video game-like environment on an image above. So this work really shows in an interesting way how natural habitat is being translated into environments in which we are actually practicing sort of reconnecting with nature. When I say reconnecting with nature, that happens through the set of objects that are in a space, and they work with the different proximity sensors that are measuring the distance of a body in a space, but also detecting very gently the movements. So what happens, this is a very sort of subtle meditative work where you actually experience digital environment as if you're on a cliff somewhere in the nature, but in a nature that is very unfamiliar to you. And each interaction adds layers and transforms this image. Heleen will later show some videos. Furthermore, what's really interesting is that every world that is presented has its own music piece. So when we speak about a combination of clubbing, music, body, I think it's also important to say that Heleen's work was very much developed in a club culture and on a music festival. So she, as a graduate from Ritual Academy, developed her practice through doing large installations of music festivals and really actually finding her language through these events. On the other side, the work from oh sorry, I'm just trying to. The work from Thijs is basically inspired by something that seems, at least to me, seems something that we kind of know, but it seems that we needed to find the proofs, and that's that the way that plants communicate, the way that the plants negotiate their space, the way that they feed and exchange the information is actually something that Stefano Mancuso, who is Italian scientist, has been speaking about and pushing this idea. It's actually the idea of a plant consciousness, but also the awareness of plants in our environments, because it seems that we are sort of we're blinded when it comes to plants. We take plants for granted. So what Thijs does with this work, he actually created a sort of 3D laser print of these roots that are cutting through the space in the exhibition diagonally, and the movement that happens through those sort of semi-transparent routes shows an interaction with the environment and resembles actually the data from Stefano's research. So how plants exchange nutrition, but also how they signal the potential danger or maybe even presence of somebody above the ground. So it's a very interesting example. Both works are very much concerned with the natural habitat and sort of reconnecting, but then again, reconnecting with nature through technology, which I think it's a quite strong point.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes. I don't know if I was clear, if you're able to hear me, but yeah, that's.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That's amazing. Obviously, we look forward to sort of hearing more.
We're,
as a curator.
What we're really trying.
Sorry, yes.
Oh, sorry.
No.
What we're really trying to do with the exhibition is really also break this idea that technology is something that detaches us or it's something that interrupts us. I think we're also trying to look into a way how can we, on one side, reclaim the technology, so put it back in the hands of people, make it more accessible, available, and at the same time, how can we actually activate bodies and for whatever reason, for personal traumas, reconnection with each other, simply moving, feeling, sensing, reconnecting with the environment, or if nothing else, how can we actually move together in times of pandemic as well? Yeah.
And what I also really like about both installations is that it shows that a lot of questions I get about, media art is like, is it film, is it light? But actually, both Heleen and Thijs have sculptural pieces as a part of the installation, and it's really mixing sensors, light, sculptures, video, mapping. So it's really a mix of all sorts of new technologies combined and telling a story. And they're also both interactive. So people play a role in the installation, but really subtle. So it's not, as people might expect, that it's, an interaction that responds immediately, but it's really subtle interaction. But still, every museum visitor will have their own personalized experience in both of those spaces, which for me is really special. And I think that's really the future of where we're going.
Yeah, the both works are never the same. So none of them really works with loops, but it really sort of almost scans the environment, which is quite nice. Yeah. So it really depends from the presence of people, and at the same time, every member of audience will see a slightly different work. Yeah.
So I personally would really love to be able to come, and I hope everyone else as well. So
Thank you.
I will let you know, but I think fingers crossed in early September it should be good, at least in Europe. And it's great. You talked a little bit about the interaction with this works, sort of the experience that every visitor will take a different message out of it. And I obviously asked Merel what she thought were the challenges of a new media art museum, but from your point of view then, from a point of view of curator, Bogomir, there are specific challenges to curate an exhibition of new media art?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think on one side, the spaces that open internationally, I think as Merel explained, we're talking about very large installations which need very particular environment conditions, budgets, technology, etc. So very often when the works are presented internationally, they tend to become sometimes too easily introduced, so for sake that the larger audience gets associated with it, or sometimes actually it's much focused on just the visuals and not the background of the work. So the challenge is to, first of all, have so many works in one space and actually establish the connection with artists, create the right conditions. And then another challenge is how you actually merge them together into a narrative, and how you communicate that narrative to different age groups, to people who are maybe not necessarily into art. I think one of our challenge, one of our challenges and aims is that we create space where maybe people who necessarily are not into museums would still come. And I think the reason why some people maybe are not into museum is that very often there is this sort of hierarchy of institution and audience and the others that need to adjust to those ideas what the institution is presenting. So yeah, challenge is how do you merge these works into a narrative that is relevant for the times that we live in, and how we actually balance the content and the presentation of the background of the work and how we translate it to the larger and different groups of audience as well. What's very important with these works is that they do not exclude you if you do not have the right education, or if you don't know the history, or if you're not able to read the symbols or the meaning of the paintings. They really rely on your personal activation, your empathy, your senses, your bodily experience. So yeah, that's something that Next is also about. It's an inclusive space where also we distribute the knowledge, but we also activate the bodies and minds. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that perhaps Merel can also jump in is, and Bogomir, you're also head of the education of the Next Museum, that perhaps you want to touch on, because you also have a residency program. That's right. I wonder if it's called Next Lab.
Yeah. So one of the reasons that we actually, way at the beginning, we didn't just want to build a space for showing artworks, but we also wanted to create a space to really push, Natasha and I call it the movement, but we really want to push the development, the research, and the creation of new media arts. And I think that that's something that in the Netherlands, it's happening on a small scale, and we want to really bring that to the next level, let's say. So some of the artworks we have in the museum are actually open source. So the infrastructure we have then allows us, for example, in an artist residency program, to have a young artist or new artists or people that want to really learn more about digital. They can start the research and development program and also potentially create a work that takes over one of the main exhibition spaces to really show the work and see the work in large scale. And I think that's one of the many things we're doing in Next Lab, but I think that's really kind of special for an educational program.
Yeah, we're also opening the Next Lab with Algorithmic Justice League, which is quite interesting example of a artistic research that really push the boundaries. It's happening outside of an art world. It's really about inaccuracy of face detection, especially when it comes to different skin colors. And I think particularly the Algorithmic Justice League is very much concerned about the life of African American community, and how very often, especially women, are not being identified correctly by face detection. So this is like a very interesting situation where the Algorithmic Justice League actually engages to operations to improve the face detection in order to avoid this inaccuracy when it comes to the communities such as African American, but not just also African American, or the communities that are sort of marginalized by the system. So that will be the work that will be presented in the Next Lab. And I think it's also kind of a statement and the direction that we would love that Next Lab sort of follows. But as Mel said, at the same time, just when we think about who has rights or access to the to produce the works, or is new media something that is really a general knowledge? Like we often frequently ask questions are like, what is the new media? And so we also realize that the part of education is even just to kind of sort of deconstruct that term or make it like more accessible and available to general public and knowledge. You mentioned artists in residence. We're looking into different collaborations with existing institutions because Netherlands has a quite long history of new media art since 80s. There's a large collection as well here. So we're really looking into recognizing the history, but also allowing the new productions to happen. And that can be from activism and technology to beautiful music and video production. We're even thinking about having few robots available here for personal use, etc., etc. So yeah.
We have a question from the audience. Benton is asking, I'm curious how the residencies are planned given the pandemic.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm actually involved with few residencies programs. I mean, it really depends from the relationship for the agreement between the countries. At the moment for us, also because of pandemic, this part was a little bit more difficult to organize. So what we're looking for in this moment are, first of all, like possible residencies for artists who are based in the Netherlands, like a fellowships, and then through some kind of programs that are supported with a local funding, we might be able to bring people from abroad. But that will follow. I think also you have to understand, I mean, you do understand, of course, that like everything, I will actually show you a little bit around, like, but all those walls here, and we're just in one space. All those walls, this is actually a folding wall. So this space will be a kind of a more often changeable space. Nothing was here. It all started in March. So you have like, basically the space was created in times of, oh yeah, I'm not sure if you're able.
That's fascinating, thank you.
Yeah.
As a preview.
So, you know, like, yeah, actually nobody was here, at least not in such a large amount. But yeah, so we are like really, all those walls are here and they're placed during the Corona. So we were like in very, 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 very particular situation, environment. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I will exit, but yeah, there are a lot of you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, good. You saw it, I think.
Thank you.
And also, I'd like to add to that, also to answer the question. I think what we also learned from COVID is that you don't always have to be present in a space to collaborate. So Bogomir and I, and also Natasha, we already discussed, like, can we also do part of the artist residency remote, and what does that look like? Because you can do a lot from a distance at the moment using video calls and technology. Especially for research and development phase. So yeah, this is something we definitely were looking into, the infrastructure and what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, we also work at the moment on these things with Jesse Damiani, who is based in States. What's also interesting, some of the works will be basically sent as files, and we will have a team here on the ground managed by, so basically, that's also something very interesting, that artists are even able to actually control and manipulate and change and improve their works from distance. So, so yeah, it's actually, the distance is quite exciting. I mean, as we're experiencing now too, like we're probably quite a diverse group of people who maybe will not be able to travel and see this kind of talk if there is no online streaming that we're using. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it certainly changed the way of doing things, but it's not necessarily negative. Some of the things, you know, we gain.
But I mean, if we also speak about new media, I mean, this platform is something very sort of old, but in order for us to really use it, we needed an urgency. So we needed a kind of alarming situation to actually commit ourselves to create program like this. Yeah.
We actually also have another very interesting question from Roberta. Roberta, I've seen your question, but I might keep it until the end because I don't want to not have time to actually show the works by Heleen and Thijs. So if it's okay with you, Merel and Bogomir, I might then now jump to in.
Please do, please. Yeah, we actually developed all the spaces thanks to the contribution of artists. So yeah, definitely floor to artists. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. So, Helena, we'll start sharing
Hi.
then.
Sure.
Okay.
There's no sound.
Oh, yes. I'm going to go back and
Thank you.
I'm gonna prepare the other video in the meantime.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you for watching, and I will shortly tell something about the installation. Habitat is a fully data-driven installation, and it documents and visualizes natural growth from 3D scans we took from the Natural History Archives of Naturalis here in the Biodiversity Center here in the Netherlands. And in the installation, animations and soundscapes simulate processes in nature. So we wanted to try to create unseen digital landscapes. And it's the work illustrates the complex exchange between humanity and the natural environment. And we also try a little bit to investigate the possibilities of a new translation for archives, but while creating an experience in which field recordings and visual translations merge and present these specimens as a very important heritage. So, but it could also suggest a little bit of a dystopian prediction for the future, so to say. So Habitat is a collaboration between Naivi, a software developer, and I, and they build a custom made software actually for the installation. They build it upon the NIP framework, and in combination with Houdini, 3D scans are transformed into this ever-evolving landscapes. We also work with Stijn van Beek, who created beautiful soundtracks and soundscapes for all the different worlds. And he is also a developer for Naivi, and he built a very advanced audio engine. And through this engine, you will be able to control and edit and synthesize sound in real time. So this is all implemented, and we're at this point we're not ready yet. I'm super happy that the next museum is providing such a beautiful place for us. I think it couldn't be better. It's best possible setting ever. It's super beautiful, and yeah, anyway, very, very yeah, very, very good. And at this point we are building the sculptures. We are in the middle of the process because the deadline is very soon. They are designed through the idea of bilateral symmetry, and that means like the body can be divided through two halves, and human beings and insects and mammals are all, they all show bilateral symmetry. So to make that connection again, and they will be the vessels for the infrared sensors. They will not be visible, but those sensors will enable the visitor to interact with the piece. And in the software, we have a very large scale of parameters that are triggered by those sensors. And in every world, we can choose what sensor should do what. And these parameters are, for instance, fog and the movement of the wind or the field of view. But also sound. Yeah, we are still thinking, should those worlds be randomly modulated over time? But maybe we just, we have that option built in, but we're still deciding because it's only 7 worlds. And yeah, it would be nice, but I have the feeling that the visitors might need to have a beginning and an end, so to say. Yeah, so that was from my side.
Do you want me to show the other video, the Habitat 2?
Yeah, you can do that.
No,
sure.
sorry, yeah, we did the 2 and now we do the 1.
Yeah.
Wait, because I had let me pull up the video. Wait, because it's here, but I don't seem to. Oh, wait, let me open it again. It says that it couldn't find the file.
No problem.
I'm afraid I cannot. I don't seem to be able to see the file.
Well, then people should go to the museum then.
Yes. Well, that's a pity though, because
it is online. I can provide a Vimeo link for the whole 4-minute experience. I will look it up, and then people can watch it later.
Yes, that would be. Well, that will also be great. I'm gonna do a last try because the first one worked, but it doesn't open. It doesn't pull up. But that would be great if you could let us have the link. Also, we can share it with
yes,
the audience.
Yes.
Oh, well, the final works. So now I am sharing the.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but this is 4 minutes. So this is the one from the Vimeo. Maybe 4 minutes is a little bit too long. For now.
It's not. We're not going to show it all. But if there is a section that you would like to.
Yeah, the beginning is nice. Maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So it was just the other file.
Sorry, it's a long intro. I don't hear the sound as well. Do you?
I do.
Oh. Anyway, I have it posted, and sorry.
I heard the sound.
Okay.
I mean, the sound was on. Yes.
Sorry, the password is operculum.
Oh, thank you. You're sharing the video. Yes.
Yes.
Sometimes the beauty of the live talk.
Yes, it's fine.
Always
it's fine.
Working. But that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing a little bit of these.
You're welcome.
7 worlds. Fascinating. Incredibly immersive. You really do feel, even just by watching on my laptop here, I feel like I am part of the world that I'm seeing. That I feel like I'm moving through the world.
We have also. Yeah, we have. I think the best projector I worked with in my whole life. I mean, I did a lot of video work, but we have the best one until till date. So I'm super excited about it. Yeah.
Thank you, Heleen. Obviously, I'm talking to the audience now. If you have any questions for Heleen, do write them on the chat. I'm going to move to Thijs now, because he also has something to share with us.
All right. I'm going to share my screen with you, if that's okay. Let me see. You can see it now, right?
Yes.
And you can see it now full screen, right?
Yep.
Nice. Here we go. So, hey, my name is Thijs Biersteker. And first of all, I'm really honored to be talking here, because it's such a great time now to launch new work within this difficult time. So for Merel and for Bogomir and the whole team there, I'm really excited to join you guys and see where this leads us. And I think just give a little bit of context of what I'm doing and how my work is being involved the last few years, and what's got me landed on the final piece that I think makes a whole circle. So as an ecological artist, I work together with scientists and researchers from all over the world, and I use their data and their findings to create interactive art pieces. And those are interactive art pieces that make you feel those facts again. And it's always themed environmental issues, pollution issues, ecological issues, and everything that keeps this world together. And while I was thinking about this work, well, basically, when I got the invitation to talk here, this is the real moment where you're like, okay, how does this work fit between everything else that you do? So I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I started to think of how that could actually fit into all the other works and what I can show you today. So when I was thinking about, okay, if we talk about nature and all the work I've made on that, it goes from finding more respect in nature. So don't pollute it, don't cut it down, don't destroy it, to actually listening to nature and to learning from nature. And then back again, of course, to respecting nature. And that's what I wanted to share with you today a little bit. And I think one of the last works we launched is really about finding that respect back for nature. Because we've all seen these pictures the last few years from outer space about the deforestation happening right now in the world. And these pictures from NASA, they're great and they're really awesome, but they're scary at the same time, because you have no idea of the sheer scale that we're looking at. And so I started to work together with the scientists, and I can tell you the real scale. It's 225,000 square meters of rainforest lost each second. So each second, there's more than 10 soccer fields of rainforest being destroyed in this world. And as an environmental artist and as an ecological artist, this is one of the most horrible things, because while we were in lockdown during COVID, the increase was 71%. So we're actually updating the artwork right now to the current deforestation rates. So what we did is we used these deforestation data, and with this deforestation data, we could program our artwork. So every leaf you can see here in this work, it can be controlled by the data from deforestation. Every leaf that you can see disappearing right now marks the loss of 225 square meters of ancient rainforest somewhere in the world. So it's taking something that's normally happening hidden somewhere far in the jungle, and it puts it there right at your feet. And I think if you talk about environmental art, if you talk about data art, about data visualization, it's the magic that we can turn these big data sets and we can make it scary and personal at that same time again. And I think that brings me to, okay, we're losing our respect for nature. How can we go back and listen to nature a little bit? So for this, I dove into a new project, into the language of trees. And I promise you, it won't be a tree hugger story, but they do talk about climate change. So every year, a tree, it creates a ring. And as these rings are further apart, it means the rings are, of the tree was growing at a steady rate. It was a healthy tree. But if they're tangled and minimalized, these trees, they experience stress, drought, pollution, and of course, climate changes, rapid climate fluctuations. And as trees, they get really, really old. We basically have the oldest data sets in the world, like a history book of climate change right there. So I started to work together with the TU Delft and with Stefano Mancuso to develop a system that collects these data from living trees. So we developed a system with 12 sensors that collected 12,000 data points. And with all these data points, we were able to generate one single tree ring, not every year, but every second. So every second, the work was producing one tree ring based on all the environmental fluctuations of its surrounding. And every bend, every curve you can see here, it shows how the nature, the tree, and the environment was being impacted by the environmental changes. And this was a sculpture in Chengdu. And what I really liked about it is how the pollution increase, the traffic jams in the neighborhood were actually impacting nature real time. So you can see the artwork lighting up based on the CO2 levels rising in the area. So it's showing how the tree was feeling inside, uncovering this voice of nature. And I didn't want people to leave the artwork fully depressed. So I added some artistic license into the mix. And okay, there's going to be a little bit of tree hugging in here, but they were able to touch the tree. And if they touch the tree, they override all the data and they could calm down the data. And just to make sure that they have the idea, everybody near the art installation has the idea that their actions matter, because their actions, they do matter. Every action creates change, and that togetherness spirit is something that I started to work on a little bit later, together with Stefano Mancuso, which we're doing this project right now. And here you can see us discussing one of our the first works we're doing in the garden of Foundation Cartier. And what we did here is we used the system and we developed it a little bit further, where we had two trees talking to each other, having the growth analyzation and seeing how they use the chemicals in the air and how the communication increases depending on the variations in its surrounding. And that's the work that was there for 5 months during the heat waves, during giant traffic jams, during demonstrations. So all this data stream was being put into the artwork, but also fed back to the universities, into the labs of Stefano. So it's this symbiotic collaboration. And when we were standing in the garden, we were actually standing on that ground part. And we're saying like, okay, this is what people can see, but what they cannot see is something which is way more interesting. And that's what's happening under the ground. And that brings me basically to the work that we're doing now at Next, together with Stefano again. And that's a continuum. So I'm going to show you a little bit of work in progress because it's not finished yet. But I think the process itself and the intention behind the work should be as clear as possible. So it's together with Stefano Mancuso again. And when we were discussing how much we like how roots are communicating, and you can find a lot of that online, how they communicate. And But basically what you have to know is they warn each other through electric signaling, and they nurture each other through to fluids, to liquids exchange. And based on this principle, I want to make an invitation to return to this symbiotic collaboration again. And so I started to talk with Stefano, like, how does it work? How does it actually look? And he says, we don't know yet. So we started to dive into his archives, and he found one of his movies that you can see here of how trees and how actual liquids, electrosignaling was happening in onion plants. And here he injected the plants with special liquids that they could trace the electric signaling. And I was like, okay, this is something that inspires me, and I've never seen before. Like, how can we bring this to this environment? So we started to rebalance and restructure that whole setting. And we came up with this idea of, what if we had two root systems, two trees talking to each other right in front of you from one side to the other. So that's what we started to build, complete sensor driven. So we take all the sensors that normally are used in trees and how they actually, what kind of sensibilities they have. We feed that into basic AIs, and they generate two streams of nutrition and electrosignaling to each other in a way that is actually happening under the ground. And next to that, we have a musical composition that's also AI driven, that's based on a linguistic AI. So they actually develop a language during the time that we're there, that the work is at the museum. So they actually, basically, I hope that I don't recognize my own work again the moment I enter the museum in the 2 or 3 months. That would be my end goal. And then for me, the most important part is, what if people enter that room? Because they will enter a conversation between nature. They can see the natural collaboration that's happening all around us in the natural world. And it will make us a little bit jealous. So can we involve the people back into that conversation? So the root structure will adapt their language and bend towards you in a digital way and involve you. So that was the basic core idea. And then we had to make it, which was a little bit harder. So here you can see a little bit of the process. So for this, we started to visualize the work first in 3D, of course, and then we printed it out with using old plastic bottles. So we developed a system where we can actually print the roots using the trash that's normally being left into nature. And on this work, you can see the first roots being printed completely in 2D. And then we actually had the flat version of it. And then we needed to sculpt it. Then we needed to twist it. Then we need to turn it. And actually by hand, something I haven't done very much. By hand, we had to actually create a complete sculpture. So it was a nice way to, where digital fabrication meets analog sculpting again. And let me see, here is something. So then we took it a step further, and you can see that every little thing, every little curve you can see in the whole artwork had to be bent, had to be reshaped, had to be rescheduled, which was a good fun exercise. Oh wait, let me restart that, because in the end I've a little bit, this is the first sneak preview of the work which we're giving you. So here you can see me turning and twisting everything with a heat gun. And we had 4 layers of this, so it's 3 months. And you can see the first test that we did with light into the sculpture and how it was actually coming alive. So this is one part of the 2 root systems that's going there, and how the electrosignaling is so slowly working between them. So this is only one side of the conversation, and now we're engineering the other side of the conversation right there, just showing how they will actually interact and how they talk to each other. So this is as much as I can show you now. And I think in the next month, we're gonna build and finalize this work into the museum, which brings me basically back to that end where I go from gaining respect and don't pollute nature, don't destroy it, to listen to nature, to learn from it, and then equally respecting it even more, I guess. So that's it. That's as far as I can take it. And I don't do these things alone. That's good for everybody to know here. No artist, no digital artist does this work all alone. It's craft from all sides. So these are the people I've worked with the last few months, the last few years, with all the work I've did. It's always good to actually provide them as well at a little stage. Right. So that was my work.
Thank you. I feel like everything I will say now will sort of ruin what we've seen now with you, Thijs and Heleen, and the memory of the works, because they really touch your sort of emotions, and it's a real sort of sensory experience, and it feels like you just want to, as you say, listen and be silent and live through the works. So I almost don't want to say, okay, bye everyone, it's over, and let's just that memory. But actually, there are a couple of questions that I still like to ask. And by the way, Thijs, just I saw the trees exhibition at Formation Cartier.
Ah, nice.
I found that really amazing, and also I've learned so much, and it seems so obvious sometimes, some of the things that surrounds us, like nature. Mm-hmm. Even with trees, I didn't really know. So I've found out a little bit more about Stefano Mancuso at the time. So
yeah, nice.
I'm glad he's still working. So it will be fantastic to come and see the one at Next.
Do it.
I will, for sure. I mean, I'm driving everywhere now in Europe, so I'll just drive up. That would be fantastic. But I have a question for Merel, actually. That was from Roberta. What do you think is the future of entirely virtual museums without a physical space?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, and I also think that's the thing that we are constantly thinking about. And our purpose of the museum is really kind of showing the art of the future, talking about topics of the future. And I think what Thijs just actually said, that creating these artworks is a form of collaboration. And I think something we want to do with Next is about collaboration and connection. And I think the more complex these artworks are becoming and the more emerging technologies that are arriving, I think the connection between people becomes even more and more important. So I almost feel that there might be two routes. I think there will be completely virtual museum experiences that will become maybe even like at home, where you can really jump up and down and you can feel and you can touch and you can smell. But I also strongly believe that the physical space where you can get in contact with people, build that connection and that collaboration, I think that that's not going anywhere. I think that will also become more extreme. Whereas you might have, really old using emerging technologies in the whole journey from the moment you get your ticket to your arrival to installations, and we don't know what it looks like, but I do know that there will still be interaction and connection between people, and I think that's really important.
I mean, I agree. I think personally, I've never really noticed how much I miss the interaction with people, or even discussing with people about art. Like I've noticed that throughout the past few months, where we were forced to be on our own, and I don't think that necessarily the solely virtual experience of a museum can sort of coexist with a physical also experience, and I think we all need that, and like we need tree hugging, and I certainly feel like the closest to nature and also the closest to others and discussing with others is definitely something that I've reflected upon also the last few months. We were all forced on indoors and dealing with technology like we're doing now. But yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree, Merel, I agree. I think unfortunately it's time to wrap up, even though I think we will maybe perhaps do a part 2 later on in the autumn if you're up for it, because I know that there is more to talk about around this topic. I'm putting it out there as an invitation for the future.
Yeah, we have 7 large-scale works, or 8, sorry, and also several different kind of transition rooms in between spaces that are also taken over by artists and musicians. So there is a lot more to talk about. Bogomir and I wanted to show floor plans and curation videos, but I think let's just maybe book another happy hour.
I definitely agree.
Like every good movie, we could have sequel, definitely, yeah. Because I think also the other artworks that we are presenting are maybe not necessary in connection to nature, because when we talk about shifting proximities, also about being alarmed by technology and the way the technology is used. So the narrative is very sort of in an unexpected way sort of developing. But yeah, we could do the sequel if you're open for it and there's interest of audience. Yeah, and I'm actually playing with Thijs sculpture here. I have a bits and pieces, Thijs.
Oh.
Wait, don't break it. We need that.
No. It's like a jewelry or like an archaeological piece. Like.
Well, yeah. Plastic roots will exist for the next 1,000 years.
In the next few weeks, we're gonna slowly launch all the artworks and behind the scenes footage on our Instagrams and on our website. So just stay tuned and follow Next Museum.
Absolutely, yes. I am already following you, and we've added the link also in our chat.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Until part 2.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Ciao. Bye.
Bye.